Hey, it's Heather, and today is a very good day for an adventure in gardening. Nettles, also known as stinging nettles, have earned their name because when you touch them, ow! Just kidding. When you touch them, they sting. They have all these little tiny hairs that feel like you've been stung by a bee when you touch them. Now, it is also the most nutritious food that I have in my garden. Is it a food? Is it an herb? Well, yeah, I think it's both. But it's easy to use once you learn how to use it. See how I'm wearing the gloves right now? This is how I'm going to pick it. So today I'm going to show you how to pick it and actually use it. Now, nettles are my multivitamin. This is what I have for a multivitamin that I use all the time, every day of the year. So I have to dry them and keep them for the winter, but when they're fresh, that's when they're best, and I'm going to use them the most this summer. I make teas, I make decoctions, and I also use them like a stir fry like I would in spinach. Now, once they've been in the pan or have been added to boiling water, they lose their sting. So that is when they become edible. Now, who was the first person that ever figured this out? I don't know, man, but thanks for taking one for the team, because otherwise we wouldn't have such a free food that's also very nutritious. Nettles are rich in vitamins A, B, C, K, magnesium, phosphorus, blah, 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 blah. You can Google and see how nutritious nettles really are. I love them. It's one of my secrets to keep me healthy and my family healthy. Now, what does it taste like? Well, it tastes just like green. It tastes like green. There are ways that you can, but you do get used to that. It is an acquired taste that you get used to after a matter of time. But there are things that you can do to kind of make it more palatable for those that aren't into green. If you happen to be in my circle of friends and we're talking and you say, hey, I got this thing going on, and I'll be like, you need nettles. I have headaches, nettles. I have this rash, nettles. Arthritis, nettles. Anticipation, indecisiveness, nettles. You need nettles. Another thing nettles has helped me out with is it helps to keep kids out of certain parts of the garden, because all I've got to do is yell, hey, look out for those stinging nettles, and everybody freezes. No one wants to get stung by the nettles. So that's why you always have to make sure that you have your gloves and your scissors when you're out harvesting your nettles. One of the greatest things about nettles is they're almost a free food. People have them in their yard and they don't want them in their yard. So all you gotta do is ask and somebody say, hey, yeah, come and get them. You'll find them very often growing around cow fields or places where there's a lot of rich composted fertilizer. The stump that's behind me is where nettles are growing on the other side. And by my composter, I'll show you in a minute, because they look a little different from this one. This one's on the young side right here. Just came through the ground. So it depends on what part of the yard it's warmest and what stage they're at. But I pretty much harvest nettles from now until the killing frost in October-ish, depending on when that happens. But yeah, fresh is best, but I'll dry them and use them dried in the wintertime. Nettles. So it's important to note, if you end up finding someone that wants to give you some nettles, to plant them in the right spot, because nettles are going to spread underground, and this whole area here I'm actually getting ready to clear out. But I'm going to show you how I say to properly harvest nettles instead of just clipping them like this. You can see yesterday my friend Sean came over and we picked a big bag for her. So I am going to snip them right above a set of leaves so that they will branch out and make bushier nettles. So I just go through. And now, are nettles gonna make you cry, that kind of sting? Probably not make you cry, but man, when you've gotten stung by stinging nettles, because it lasts a really long time. Some people call it 7-year itch. It won't last 7 years for sure, but yeah, it reminds you that it's there. So I just take a big bowl and throw my clippings in the big bowl. And then when I get inside, I'm going to add water to the bowl and let them soak, because when they're this short, they tend to have the bounce up of the soil onto the bottom leaves. So I want to soak them and get all of the dirt off the bottoms of the leaves before I process them in whatever way I'm going to process them. Now this nettle is on the back side of my compost pile. You can see, just look at how full and beautiful those leaves are. It looks a little bit different from what we just saw when they're just coming out of the ground. I don't know if you can see the little hairs, the little bristles that are on the stem there. But this little patch here, and by the way, I didn't plant any of these nettles. The nettles came to me, and how am I supposed to say no to something that comes to me? It's got to be good for me, so a lot of research before I originally started feeding nettles to my family. My daughter likes to tell the story about how we saved my husband's life one time, keeping him from eating a bowl full of nettles. He just walked into the house and saw a big bowl full of greens that we were in the process of processing, and it was like one of those slow motion events where we're screaming no as he's going to take a leaf and put it in his mouth. So we saved him. You're welcome. So nettles love areas where there's good rich soil, and this is right underneath my rabbit pen. So obviously I'm going to use extra caution when I pick these, and probably soak them in a bowl full of white vinegar for a while to make sure I kill any, bad stuff that's on my nettles from the rabbit stuff. But you can see there the difference in, the more mature nettles and these that have just come through the surface of the soil. Those are almost burgundy color there. But yeah, we're nettle rich. So I think what we're going to do is I'm going to harvest some of these wild onions and pick some nettles and go inside and make tea, and also make like maybe some stir-fried nettles and wild onions with some scrambled eggs for lunch today. Okay? Sound good? I'm sure you've seen these wild onions growing in lawns and all over the place. These are in the wrong place, and I'm going to be moving them this year. Because I really do like them, but I walk here and every year I end up stomping on them. So I'm just going to dig some up now. Oh look, there's a nice looking worm in here. Get out of there, buddy. So we've got these onions. I'm going to dig a few more of these. We've got these onions and the greens, which I'll cut with scissors, and this will be part of lunch today. But as long as you leave some of these in the ground, they'll keep coming back. Again, another free food. That's a nice looking one. You can see all these little babies here that should go back into the ground. Are you helping? You a helper? So welcome to the kitchen. We're gonna go ahead and get started. I've got some water boiling for tea, and the skillet is out, and I have soaked the nettle greens. So the first thing we're gonna do is start with the tea. When I use fresh nettles for tea, I use the stems and the foliage and sometimes even the roots. And I put everything in my coffee press here for tea. So even like these great big roots that I wouldn't necessarily eat, or I could chop them up really fine and eat them, but I would just as soon make a very nutritious tea. So I just take my foliage and my stems and everything, and I just pack them in my little coffee press here. Now, sometimes I will go ahead and add a small piece of ginger or a squeeze of lime or lemon just to give it a little bit of a different flavor or to hide that fresh nettle taste. But I really like the taste of nettles by itself. I just really become very used to it. So, and I like it. I like it now. Did I always like it? Not so much. I think I used to smile and say that I liked it. But, so I pack that in here. This is good for tea for me for the day, and I'll just sip it throughout the day. Now, if I'm making a decoction, I get a great big 3-gallon pan out, and I will fill it halfway with nettles and let it simmer on the stove with water. Let it simmer on the stove for 20 minutes and then turn it off, and then pretty much leave it for the rest of the day or even into the next day until the liquid is almost black looking. I know that sounds kind of weird, but when you make a decoction, you want to get more of the medicine out of it by simmering it longer and letting it sit longer. And this, just to give you an idea, this is something that I made yesterday. This is, no, I don't think you can see. All right, well, this is dandelion decoction that I made yesterday. I was weeding the garden. I don't think I need gloves for this. And this is my tea, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna put my hands in it. Roots, leaves and all. And it's a very golden color right now. And I've been sipping that throughout the morning. Dandelions are really good for your liver and for detoxing. And so if you're going to be weeding them out of the garden, put them to the side, soak them in water, get all the soil off of them, and then simmer them for 20 minutes and let them sit, and you've got a very nutritious tea decoction or broth. Speaking of broth, I make broth out of the nettles as well for soup. I have a recipe for a tomato nettle soup that people love, even though they didn't know that they loved nettles. So now my tea is going to set for a little bit. Going to let that just brew. And now I'm going to start taking all of the leaves off of the stems so that we can stir fry these for lunch today. So at this point, wearing gloves is still necessary when you're handling the nettles. Some people say that they pick their nettles without wearing gloves, and I actually am known to use stinging nettles for arthritis in my hands, which sounds a little crazy, but Google it, it really does work. So. When your stems are a little bit longer than this, you can just take and go backwards to strip them off. But right now I'm just pinching the tops off of these and the side leaves. Here are the wild onions that I dug up. So now all I'm going to do is take and snip off those dried ends. I'm just going to cut them into the bowl because I don't necessarily want to cook this part because these are pretty tender. So I'll just snip all those off, and then I'm going to take my knife cut the very ends of them off. Let's see how I can do this here. So a little bit of butter in the pan with the wild onions that I just cut. And now my nettles are all clean and I shook most of the water off of them. And now I'm just gonna take my gloved hand and still put them in the pan. And when they wilt, after the heat has hit them and they wilt, there's no more sting. So, And from here, it's just like spinach. It's going to cook down quite a bit. Got a couple of eggs. I'll crack them. Going to throw the greens in now from the onions. The greens from the onions, I'm going to throw those in. So you might be thinking to yourself, so how does it taste? Well, it tastes just like chicken. No, it doesn't taste like chicken at all. It actually tastes a lot like spinach does. It's very, very yummy, or any other green that you would cook up. So that's all there is to using nettles. I have some lunch and I have some tea for later when I'm needing a little pick-me-up or some extra vitamins into my diet. Nettles are a very nutritious food. They are one of the first to come through the ground in the spring. Ask around, see if any friends have some nettles that you can dig, or maybe make friends with a local farmer and just look around the outside of their cow pasture, and I bet you're going to find nettles. Bring gloves, bring your own bag, dig them up, or you can even buy seeds online for nettles. I hope that this has inspired you to try something different and try something new and add another powerful source of vitamins and minerals to your garden, that's a perennial that comes back year after year after year. And remember, every day is an adventure. Oh, and did I mention you should subscribe? You should subscribe and don't miss out on another adventure in gardening. I think the woodpecker's laughing at me.